It's time for Market Explainer, your number one business news podcast. Hosted by Danny and the big man. And it starts right now.
Well, I want to tell everyone about our sponsor for the next segment, Acre Gold. Meet the new store of value. It's the same as the original store of value. This timeless and thoughtfully designed gold can be purchased with a subscription where you deposit money every month. When that money accumulates to the spot plus probably 10% price of gold, they send you 2.5 grams of gold. Now, these are known quantities in the universe. 6.8% inflation this year. People often say things like gold and silver are a great hedge against inflation. That's up to you to determine. But I certainly feel that way. I certainly am an investor in a lot of different precious metals, physical precious metals, where they actually send you the stuff. Click the link down in the description down below. You can get started with Acre Gold today.
Gold is a great price right now, too. I like it.
Yeah. I buy gold whenever, for my nieces and nephews, whenever one of them is going to be born. They get gold. So they have more money than I do when I was 20. So this little company, this YouTube competitor, Rumble.
Okay, can you stop? Rumble is not a YouTube competitor. We're going to get into this. When I saw this on the story today, first of all, go ahead and tell people what the story is.
Okay. YouTube competitor Rumble Inc. Is going public through a SPAC.
Yeah,
Karen Fitzgerald
SPAC,
yeah. Why do you say SPAC, but I say SPAC?
I don't know.
Why is that? Okay.
Well, because it's technically SPAC. I say it properly. You say it improperly. But potato, tomato, tomato, whatever.
Yeah, I'm correct. You're incorrect. They're going to be listed on the NASDAQ. So this is an interesting business. So Rumble.com was for the longest time simply a Vimeo type service that news organizations and other places used to host video that they embedded on their website.
Correct.
But somewhere through all of the mishigas of this year and last year and all of the political drama that has resulted in people getting kicked off of YouTube, Rumble has become a platform that politically conservative people
but by the design of the founder of the company. The founder of the company took it in a direction where he made the company itself's project, and I quote, because I like to, Rumble is designed to be the rails and independent infrastructure that is immune to cancel culture. We are a movement that does not stifle, censor, or punish creativity and believe everyone benefits from the access to neutral network with diverse ideas and opinion. We are on a mission to restore the internet to its roots by making it free and open once again.
And
now,
listen,
that's from the owner of the company. So the owner of the company took it in that political arena as an alternative, thinking, like a lot of people do, that by doing that, you'll end up competing against, when Danny says, a YouTube competitor. Now, I say Danny says because I live in the real world where real people use real information to back up their statements. And let's just kind of look at this. So right now, Rumble
by the way,
go ahead.
I just want to air out some, personal grievances here. We have been talking about adding Rumble as a distribution point for our podcast.
Absolutely. Why not?
And the person who handles the video side, who volunteered to handle the video, has yet to actually...
Volunteered by voluntold. You know what I mean? But go ahead. Somebody has to do it.
I think your exact words were, don't worry, Danny, I'll handle all of the video and audio.
It has nothing to do with our first podcast failing, because Danny was doing it. But anyway, go ahead. Anyway, go back. So we'll get our show up on Rumble. We have a show that might appeal to some people that are on Rumble. Yeah. And I'm not down. I am in no way discrediting Rumble as a site. I don't care what
No.
their values are. If you've got enough eyeballs and enough people coming to your site, great. And they do. They've got enough to go SPAC. Here's my problem, though. When people, and again, I like to pick on Danny. You know why? You know, it's part of the reason he's on the show. We love each other. We pick on each other. So when I say Danny doesn't know what he's talking about, I only mean it 60%. So, but Danny's saying YouTube competitor, they're really not. And I get why Rumble says it. Everybody wants to be the competitor of the big dog. But going SPAC, they have to release certain numbers, right? You're going public.
Correct.
So the number in this case that they've said is the most recent monthly average is 36 million active users per month, right? They bounce between 36 million and 44 million active users a month. Now, when Danny says YouTube competitor, you want to take a wild guess of what YouTube's active monthly people are versus Rumble's 33 to 44 million?
Well, it's a lot more, I can guarantee
you. It's 2.1 billion with a B. Okay, so are they even close? Yes, they're in the same. Yes, they post videos to their site. So in that, they're a YouTube competitor, but they're not.
So here's what I'm saying. Was Tesla at the beginning of its, with the Tesla Roadster, was it really a competitor to Ford? No.
It's still not a competitor to Ford. So
not by volume, not by sales volume, but by stock price, sure is.
Well, and that's where, to me, you have to, again, this being market explainer, I try to educate people on when they're looking at investments. So just FYI, Rumble is combining with, it's called CF Acquisitions Corp. It's CFVI is its current stock ticker. It'll be that same stock ticker until at least when they finish this out, which is the second quarter of next year, estimated, right? So you can go out and buy what will eventually become Rumble today for about $13.50 a share. It's in that ballpark.
So Rumble also recently acquired Locals, which when we decided we were going to move to some of our stuff over to Patreon, I said, hey, I'd much rather use Locals because I know that there's been sometimes issues at Patreon. And that was met with silence. No, we're just going to, nothing.
Well, again, this comes down to, in business, sometimes you look at things as anything perfect. No, there's nothing perfect. No. But people are going to start at what they know, right? Yeah. People are going to start with a Patreon and then maybe move to something else that's smaller, maybe has better features, whatever, but that's after you're established. If you're trying to create a video podcast show, you don't start on Rumble. You start on YouTube and then maybe add it to Rumble, and that's the way business works.
I know.
But going back to Rumble and this CFVI, when it talks about investment, market explainer, is you have to be careful of statements when you're looking at investing or buying stock in a company.
Right.
With companies, we just talked about this with the last one, right? With Better.com. Yeah. When you're looking at investing, you have to be careful with what people are saying and how they're trying to portray that moving forward. When they go, well, Rumble is a competitor to YouTube, that's somebody trying to sell you on Rumble.
Yeah. So when I say Rumble is a competitor to YouTube, here's what I mean. In a universe where YouTube is ubiquitous, when I say it's ubiquitous, here's what I mean by that. My 60-something-year-old mom, who's a grandmother, who's not from the age of the internet, watches dumb videos on YouTube, okay? It's plugged into her TV. It's everywhere, okay? It's on her phone. So I'm just saying, in that world, where can you name dailymotion.com? When YouTube not just got out in front, because in this world of social media, Facebook at least had Twitter, different functionality.
Correct.
But there was competitors. YouTube got acquired by Google. Google shut down its Google video service, only had YouTube. And from then on, YouTube was it.
Right.
And one of the reasons it is that way is simply because the bandwidth it takes to run a video is not an easy thing to deliver. So the bandwidth it takes...
The upfront cost is insane.
enormous,
Right.
enormous.
Bandwidth, storage, all of it.
Yeah,
Right. Access,
and
all of it. Right.
correct.
And Google
So
pushes you to YouTube. Google became
correct.
the largest search engine. That
Right.
search engine acquired a video product that it adds to their search engine and pushes everyone that's using Google to that service.
And
It was
what
brilliant.
and what Big Man just described is now the context of a $2 billion court case between Rumble and Google, because Rumble has said YouTube unfairly, in their words, from what I can gather, unfairly directs people to YouTube and it's not delivering straightforward search.
I'm sure
Now,
that is. I'm sure Danny is vehemently against that because Danny hates any government interference into.
yes, I agree.
So,
If you're Rumble and Google doesn't send people to your website, they don't send people to my websites.
well,
Okay?
partner with Firefox or partner with what I mean,
DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo or
I
whatever, right?
think
Like,
I think at some point DuckDuckGo or one of these alternative search /
right.
browsers, whether it's Brave or whomever, ends up in a situation where they're in a public company like Rumble.
But you run into the same thing if you right. How much of the percentage of population uses a DuckDuckGo, right? Maybe that's a higher percentage of the people you're trying to get to, but
Yeah,
what percentage daily
not a
of
lot.
the average users? What is it?
It's 10% or
Ten
something.
percent, 5%. So again, by partnering with that company, yeah, they're more of your users, but you also have to be okay with the fact that that's 5% of the people. You're right.
Yeah,
You're leaving
it's
95% on the table.
yeah,
So and look, you can make plenty of money with that 5%.
yes.
Plenty of money, right? So you definitely have to. But it's just one thing to think about. Is all I'm saying.
So here's how I would put things. For most of your life, Big Man, it was J.C. Penney and Sears.
Right.
Go ahead and try to walk into one of those places today.
Absolutely. Change is the only constant.
So at some point, somebody's going to come along and eat YouTube's lunch. Is it going to be Rumble? I'm going to go ahead and say right now, absolutely never. It's going to be somebody though. Somebody's going to come along, and I already use DuckDuckGo. I got my family to use it simply for one reason. I said, listen, do you want to look at the product you're getting delivered? Go search something on DuckDuckGo and then Google and compare which results you relate better to, which you wanted to see.
See, if you would have told me, and again, I'm old, but if you would have told me, obviously 30 years ago, that Sears and J.C. Penney, to use your current example, were gone, basically, in
Yeah, I
2021, I'd have laughed at you. However, here's what I also believe is we also live in an environment, we know the mistakes that Blockbuster made. We know the mistakes that Sears made and J.C. Penney and a lot of these. And I think companies like Google, for example, and what is now Meta, right, over Facebook, and we talked about last week about GE splitting up and different, what I think they've learned from those mistakes. I don't know that Google or will ever be unseated or YouTube will ever be unseated because here's why. I think they've learned that they have to constantly change to the environment that they're in. And if Google and YouTube does that, it may not look like YouTube does today, but YouTube I think will exist in 50 years because they've brought that in. Google has brought that in. Meta, what is Facebook became Meta, has brought that in. GE is learning from it. These Johnson and Johnson is learning from it. If you they pivot and they keep going.
Now let me use an internet example, which is probably a little more relatable to the subject matter. AOL also thought it was going to exist forever. Okay.
Sure.
And listen, AOL does sort of exist, right? Sort of.
I think Microsoft Network, which was AOL, right? Microsoft Network still exists.
No, it's not. They had nothing to do with each other.
Microsoft Network, MSN, bought all of AOL when it died.
No.
Yeah, if you had an AOL...
It was Yahoo.
No, AOL, if you had an AOL email address, you use Microsoft to now get into your AOL email.
Whatever.
Anyway, the point is,
Yeah.
Again, yes, you are right. Yahoo enveloped a portion of AOL.
Correct. Here's all I'm saying. All of these companies thought that they were going to continue to exist. AOL never thought what happened to them could happen. Netscape Navigator was listen. Netscape Navigator was the subject of a antitrust lawsuit because Microsoft kept bundling it. If I simply describe a class action lawsuit that was huge at the time, the head of Andreessen Horowitz, whatever the guy's first name is, Andreessen, was the CEO, I think, and he's like, the concept that this happened in my lifetime, that Netscape Navigator, which doesn't exist anymore,
right?
And Internet Explorer, which also doesn't exist, which is just
well, wasn't Microsoft sued because of only putting its products in each Windows version, right? Word and PowerPoint, yes. Whatever. Yeah. So I get what you're saying. The point though is they're always going to, whether it's a consolation prize or whatever, yeah, they're going to be able to maneuver. Yeah.
Listen, that's how fast the market moves. Okay. A business. If I have a 18-year-old nephew, and if I say Netscape Navigator, he's not going to know what that is.
True, but I think Google would have to screw up big. I mean, they know what happened to JCPenney. They know what happened to Blockbuster. They know what happened to AOL.
And it's not, and that's not what's going to happen to them. It's not all meteors that destroy the dinosaurs are the same.
That is true, and there could be obviously something. I think honestly, this whole, and we'll get into this in another episode. I'm sure because the metaverse is going to be a big thing we talk about going forward. But I think you have some dangers in that. It's such a buzzword right now. Just kind of what we're talking about here with Rumble and YouTube. Look, Rumble could be that person. I don't think it is, but it could 100 be that person.
Listen, I don't ever think Rumble is going to be a big business. Here's all it's ever going to be. It's going to be the place where you got kicked off of YouTube for saying something that is mundane, but for one reason or another, YouTube defined that as wrong. And you're going to take your user base of 100 followers or whatever, 100,000 followers, and you're going to go to Rumble. And that's all that's going to happen. But you do that, that's 10 or 30, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people. That's millions and millions of users for Rumble. And I already know people who use Rumble because their favorite YouTube news show got taken off of YouTube.
Right, so they moved over to Rumble, and let me tell you something. Look, and Rumble for the foreseeable future, if this is your thing and this is what you want to invest your money in, right? Rumble's a good company for you. And here's why.
I wouldn't.
No, I'm just saying. Here's why. You like it. Yeah. If they're going to go SPAC, right? Yeah. This is going to happen. Right, so you're going to have Rumble Incorporated, whatever that stock ticker ends up being. Right now, again, it's CFVI. Right. The point, though, is in this transaction, the guy that's made it what it is that I read the quote from earlier, is made this SPAC deal where he's maintaining majority share. Right, that's part of this news thing. Is the transaction is expected to rate, but the chief CEO, right, Chris, yeah. I'm not even going to attempt to, Pavlovsky, I think is the last name, Pavlovsky, will retain voting control to facilitate execution of Rumble's neutral mission on behalf of all stakeholders. That's him coming out saying, hey, I'm going to continue to do it this way. And if Pavlovsky here is the same as Garg,
right,
you got to deal with those consequences, right?
Right.
He obviously thinks that his vision is the right vision, and he wants to maintain that vision after. He's saying, I'm going to maintain this vision even after going public. That's why I say, if this is what you're into, if this is your deal, then.
And I give him credit for understanding this much. Like, it's going to take an individual at the helm whose goal is to be neutral. Otherwise, culturally, things are just what they are, and you're not going to be able to be neutral because somebody will eat your lunch. So
look, that is what it is. It's probably our smallest story this week just because it's obviously there's more information as we go further and further. This is a second quarter 2022 right?
Yeah.
What happens during this process has changed. I mean, there's benefits to them coming out with this story. They've actually got it in here that Rumble's initial investors, that currently the company's expected to go SPAC at a valuation of a little over $2 billion, right?
Yep.
But the current shareholders, the original investors in Rumble, are actually, if the CFVI stock gets above and stays above the 1750, which is it's already at 13 where it was $8 or $9. Now it's at 13, 14. If it gets around that $18 per share mark pre SPAC, they get even more.
Good for them.
So they're pushing. And I think you're going to see a lot of investment in marketing in Rumble over the next 4 months, because they're going to want to bring more eyes to the SPAC to push up the price, to push up the pre-SPAC price, so that they get even more for their investment, yada yada. Right?
Why wouldn't they?
No, I don't blame them for that at all. So if you are interested, again, CFVI, you can get it today for about $13, $14 a share.